Hey everyone, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Good morning. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly. So
Good.
I'm just going to get our little logo going on here. Give me just 1 second. Is Aisha still joining us as well? Or do you want me to put her in the waiting room for us?
Um,
I'm gonna be in the waiting room. I need to take care of this baby. Sorry.
No worries. All right.
Thank you.
I'm going to put you back in the waiting room. All right, perfect. So good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, depending on where you are listening from. I've got a really exciting treat for us all today. So my special guest today is Monica Jackson, and she's obviously on with us live. And we normally, on the show, the Child Care Bridge, we normally interview physical centers that have one location, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, whatever that is. But what I've been hearing a lot of, and especially with the last 6 months with COVID, is we probably have had, if I were just to make a random guess, probably 250 home childcare centers or family centers kind of reach out and say, hey, I could use some assistance. I could use some help. Tell me how to navigate this. Should I try and get a physical center? Should I just get this location full? Should I open up another location? So I wanted to bring on Monica, and I know a good friend of hers, Aisha, who will be in the waiting room, and we can bring her in if she's able to kind of navigate between taking care of some infants and also jumping on with us as well. So we can bring her in. But between Monica and Aisha, they are experts in family/home childcare. So Monica, I'd love to hear a little bit more about you. I'd love to hear about your background. And this is really, again, it's a casual conversation, a casual conversation, so that the hope is that as we go through our chat and we kind of brainstorm, we strategize, that other home centers, family centers that are in a similar situation as you can leverage this knowledge, this insight to grow and to get through these tough times. So without further ado, welcome to the Child Care Bridge. So if you could give us a little bit of background on yourself and your home center, we'll kind of start there.
Thank you for having me, Mike. As you mentioned, I've been doing family childcare for a while. I'm at least for almost 30 years. My background, my career, I came from a banking background. I was a commercial lender. I was also a credit manager in the capacity of training. And I used those skills once I decided to be in the childcare field. I transferred those skills with me. I did not know at the time that I was approached for childcare, and I did not know at the time that you did not have to go to school to get a degree. So I did, and I went and I got an early childhood degree. I finished the program in 9 months, and the head of the early childhood department gave me immediately a contract to work with the Department of Social Services in Arlington. And there, my job was to offer workshops to primarily Middle Eastern providers where English was a second language. And that's where Aisha came in. I was able to put out the content. Aisha was able to translate and to break it down so that it was more experiential for those providers. In 1991, I started my childcare business, and I started it primarily because I came out of the field and I wanted to have my kids raised by my values. I also saw an opportunity for me to make a living and make a difference. And that's pretty much the foundation for the childcare. And since I've been in this field, I have every single day, I try to be better than the day I was when I started. And that's about it. It's Jackson Childcare is a state licensed facility for 12 kids. We pretty much live in the same community for the last 30 years. And I'm fortunate to be in a community that is very supportive, and I'm known within the community. And I enjoy that reputation by giving back to the community. Is that enough information?
No, that was perfect.
Okay.
That was perfect. So I know that I've got a background and have done our homework and you and I speaking beforehand, but I want to make sure that we're kind of giving everyone that's listening a good background as well. So when I look at kind of how things have been the last 6 months, and I'm going to use the phrase childcare, and I use that phrase in a general term. Obviously, the last 6 months have been the craziest 6 months. I think that at least I've experienced. Most of the centers that we work with, it's the craziest that they've ever seen. Tell me a little bit more about kind of how things have been going with your family center the last 6 months since COVID hit.
Things have been going relatively well, quite frankly. Enrollment is low because of the industry in general. However, that slowness have given me the opportunity from a professional development standpoint to maximize the learning opportunities. There's just so much going on. In fact, the days, I spend most of my days doing webinars, gathering information. I work with a group of family childcare providers, and the information that I get, I share that willingly with them. It's just, for me, I've applied for a number of grants, which I was successful. So I've been involved while I'm doing the coaching and the counseling. I'm also upgrading my facility. I look at, in times like this, I have to look at what do I have? And what I have is a huge backyard. This current situation lends itself to be outside as much as possible. So we have transformed the outside into classroom, and we've upgraded the playground so that the physical distancing can be practiced without compromising the fun that the children would have.
Tell us a little bit about the grant stuff, because that's, I know, not something that a lot of centers have been able to either understand, or not even just understand, but I can't tell you the last time that I've heard of a center getting a grant. How did you find out about it? Are there grants that you're aware of across the U.S.? What does that look like?
Okay. For me, it was just, again, being exposed to the webinars and being in tune with the day-to-day news. One grant that I got was through PayPal. That was almost $8,000. It was a lengthy process. However, along the way, administratively, I filled out that. The state gave care grants. We got 2 checks. We got the stimulus check, which everybody got. The EIDL program, the first go around, came with a grant. And so we got $3,000 grant from that. The PPP loan, we were able to successfully get that. That ultimately will be a grant. The county itself has a grant that they made available to small businesses. That was a $10,000 grant. So we also were able to get that grant funding. It was just a matter of doing our homework and keeping on top of who's doing what and what's being offered, and administratively learning the rules of each grant and seeing if we're audience for that, and just following up on it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I think that is something that a lot of family centers, and not even just family centers. I mean, I'm sure there's some family centers that are listening right now, or that they'll listen to the replay. There's physical centers, but I definitely think, to your point, they want to make sure that they're really maximizing any free money that's out there, because there's a lot of free money as we speak. I mean, there's just what I have found is providers that remained open to support the essential workers. They were so busy doing what they do early in the morning, late in the afternoon. They did not have time to know what was going on at the state, federal, or local level. And so I started a series of emails in a group of feeding this information to them. I'm also the chairperson of the Fairfax County Child Care Advisory Council.
And in that position, I get the opportunity to interact with a lot of providers. And so administratively, I was able to share a lot of the resource and knowledge that I have to those providers. Literally, Mike, my house was like a dentist's office. I would have one provider sit in while I'm filling out paperwork, whether it be PPP grant or what have you. And then I'd have somebody in a waiting room. I have two large sunroom. And then I'd have somebody waiting at the curb so that we can do the physical distance. This is the type of hustle that is necessary when you have times like this to come together and to support each other.
No, that was great. I mean, it sounds like, and we can, if it makes sense in the near future, on this call, we can bring in Aisha. I can see her in the waiting room with her mask on. So we can bring her on in just a few minutes as well if she would like. Aisha, there's a little private chat here also. Feel free to send that over if you want to have us bring you on shortly as well. So tell me about so I'm big on numbers. Mm-hmm. And obviously it's not just numbers. I mean, if you're in this just to make money, you wouldn't be in this industry. And I can tell just with your background, I mean, you're really all about helping the community, helping the families, but even more so, what I didn't realize until you and I started speaking was that you're also trying to help influence a lot of other home centers as well. So tell us about kind of what is your capacity? Where are you today? And we'll talk a little bit about marketing because that tends to be where I will be able to at least throw some ideas to you and our listeners. But tell us a little about what do the numbers look like at your family center currently?
Maximum enrollment as a state licensed provider is 12 for children between the ages of birth and 12. There's a point system. For me, my market preschool, no matter what. So if I'm going with that market, a maximum that I can have on my own is 8 kids. However, I operate my business with, I believe strongly in having helpers. I try to keep my ratio at 1 to 4. Currently, I have 3 enrollees. My vision is to be right back where I was before the pandemic. Before the pandemic, we had 6 of our kids transitioning from daycare to kindergarten. Those that are the new ones coming in, of course, with the pandemic, parents hesitate. And so that is something to be addressed at a later time when the economy and the health is better. So I'm operating on a very low spectrum. However, I'm operating with a vision, and I'm operating on a daily basis as though that vision is real.
I love it. No, that's great. You're very, very well spoken on this.
Oh, thank you.
Extremely well spoken. So if I look at kind of where home centers want to go, so to me, there's a few different things that I've seen, and I would love your input on this. So there's the home centers that I have seen that they normally start off because they had a child or 2. And similar to what you said, you wanted to instill your values and make sure that you were able to kind of keep an eye on them, but also to make a little bit of extra income. So that I would say is where I see a lot of the home centers. The other thing that I see then is some home centers that want to transition to having an additional home center. So there's one home center that I just spoke with yesterday and kind of asked about their goals, which I will ask you that question also in just a second. What are your goals? And I love that you're saying you've got vision and you're coming with a positive attitude every day. I don't hear that every day, so that's music to my ears. So also, where do you want to go? What is the end game? What is your vision for this? What does this look like? So there are the centers that they want to have their one location and they want to aim to kind of stay full so that they're maximizing the opportunity and impacting as many families as they can. Then there's some centers that are home. I refer home, family. There's obviously a lot of different ways to label it as there are with childcare in general. Oops, I hit the mute mic by accident. Childcare, daycare, preschool. I mean, there's so many different phrases, so many different words that all mean different things. Montessori, non-Montessori, bilingual, trilingual. I mean, I've heard it all and seen it all. So there's ones that they'll say, well, I want to have a second location. And then I would say that one of the trends that I am seeing extensively over the last 6 months is providers that started off at home, so with a home center, and they have said then their goal is to move into a physical location, that they want to have kind of a brick and mortar. They want to be able to have, 30 enrollments, 50 enrollments, 100. And they want to start to take what they've built at home, that curriculum, those values, and basically take it to a wider market. And kind of take it to a wider scale. So I would love your input on a few things. Number one, I would love to hear a little bit more about your vision for your center. And then what are you seeing you're working with, family centers all day, every day. I personally am not. So the company that I run, Local Child Care Marketing, we work with, they have to have a physical location or even multiple locations. But we do have a course that helps family centers that we're putting the finishing touches on. So you're much more in this space than I am. So I would love to hear kind of what are you seeing with your boots on the ground, so to speak. What is the vibe that you're feeling, and kind of have that conversation.
For me, my personal vision is to continue doing what I'm doing. And I'm very relational. And so therefore, I like the small group. I'm a big advocate for family childcare. It's not for everyone, but I believe the data supports that 67% of families with children under 5 prefer a family day home. So therefore, that means that there's a lot of opportunity. I would like for everybody I come in contact with that's a family childcare provider to look at this as a profession and to treat it as such, to recognize that, the empowerment that we bring to the industry with these kids, it's more than that I can express to you in words. So therefore, Aisha approached me years ago about going into partnership for a center where she would do the infants and I would do the preschool. And, just my gut feeling and this is how I am. Immediately, I said no. I have another friend who inadvertently got the invitation to be in backstage. She also approached me about a center, and my feeling hadn't changed. I've had real estate developers, I've had churches approach me about being a center. I am just a diehard family day home. I like the numbers. It makes sense to me. In this current situation, I think it puts family day home providers at an advantage. And the data that we saw at the state level is that centers, like 40% of centers closed while family day home were the ones supporting the essential workers. Family day home is compatible to everyday living. We have to pay for our mortgage. A center right now may have a commercial lease, and there's all sorts of things that go on there. There's administrative expenses. When I look at the numbers and I look at the quality of life that I can enjoy and I can help others enjoy, this is my comfort zone. This is what makes sense for me. It's not for everyone, but this is how I look at it.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I love it. And it's no surprise to me that you've been approached by other people saying, hey, I've got a space in a church, and that seems to be becoming a much, much bigger trend that I'm seeing. Mm-hmm. I actually am sitting in a church as we speak. I rent an office space in a church because the churches, they all want to kind of maximize, they want to maximize some of the revenue that they have coming in as well, but also be able to provide a valuable service to the community. Mm-hmm. So there's nothing wrong with saying, well, I want a family center and I want to have one location. I can hold 12 and that's my comfort zone, and that's what I want to be. And I do think that's the lion's share of the centers. And while there's opportunities, in my opinion, from what we're seeing to acquire other locations, this is from the metrics that I'm seeing, it's pretty doom and gloom, unfortunately. So we won't go down that rabbit hole of the percentages that people are forecasting of physical locations. So having a brick and mortar that's outside of your home. So I think that home centers are going to have a pretty nice advantage. And are you seeing, when I'm thinking about this, are you having, because I want to then unpack enrollments with you and give you some strategies that I believe could help you drive some enrollments over the next couple of weeks. So I definitely want to get to that. But what are you hearing from the parents? So when a prospective parent is calling you, what are you hearing? Are they all saying, well, we just want to wait because we're all at home? Do you feel that is variable based on the location? Because there are a lot of centers that we work with that is the case. And then there's a lot of centers that it's the exact opposite, that parents are like, oh my gosh, I've had my kids for 6 months, get them out of the house. And they can't work from home. So what are you hearing when parents are calling you?
My heart goes out to the parent right now with a child. That they're in a very precarious position. They need to work from home. They need to have a schedule. However, the fear of having the child return, I've been with my parents for years. My parents know me. We've had this discussion. I had a recent Zoom discussion where we invited the parent and providers for the parent to express their concern and, you know, what may hold them back from coming into care. And quite frankly, Mike, it's the safety. It comes down to two things: safety and trust. And that's what we have to take into consideration. Safety, to me, translates into your physical environment and your daily practice. Trust, that's the relationship that you have with the person, that they turn their most valuable resource over to you and they feel comfortable about when they leave the front door. And they don't think about those two things. They come back and they pick the child up. And to me, if I can get that balance, I'm good. And so is the parent.
I like it. No, that's great. To me, you're throwing out a lot of amazing value on this call. So Aisha, I'm going to bring you on for a second. I know that you have mentioned that Aisha is your partner in crime. So we'll let her say hello for a minute, and if she needs to jump off, I can always, Aisha, put you back in the waiting room. And then I would love to throw some ideas that we're seeing that are working well for family centers to grow your enrollment. That's my background, and that is really where that's the playground that I like to play in, is how do we help maximize the space that you have with enrollment. So I'm going to add you, Aisha. So welcome. Thank you so much for hopping on as well. I know Monica put you on the spot and said, hey, here's a link. Why don't you come on and join us? So thank you for obliging us this morning. So tell us a little bit about your background. Monica kind of talked you up considerably. I didn't know a ton about your background before coming into this. So tell us a little bit more about your background. It sounds like you're very deep in the family home center space as well.
Yes, there's good morning. You know, I'm proud to be in the family childcare business because this is a nurturing business where we are taking care of the family, other families, communities, and I, you know, it's been 36 years and not one single day, you know, Monica know and I know that we never said, I'm bored, I'm gonna change my job and things like that. But we always are, because we get this trust from these families. We learn, you know, because they are living the precious possession of their life. They're not parking their car in the garage. They're living this living child with us, and here's our responsibility, how to take care of the optimal care we can provide. So, and it's a partnership between me and family. So last 36 years, I'm very happy. The pandemic happened, and then everything stopped altogether as a business, because for a couple of years I started catering only teachers' children. And of course, Fairfax County Public School closed, the teachers are home. I still, um, everybody wanted to stay home with their children, and they have this fear, the exposure to their children, to other children, and they also uh, had this fear that when they go to school, they will bring something to my household. So everything is like a standstill. I'm lucky to have this only one child right now, and he's 18 months old, and he also is a buddy to my grandson. So I'm glad that they both have a chance to play together. And the parents of this child also doesn't want a crowded place where he was going to a daycare center. They didn't want him to go to a daycare center because they didn't want him to expose to other children or other teachers. So they feel safe with me. So I'm really, really happy that he's coming, and my grandson and him are great playmate to talk to each other, play with each other.
Mhm.
No, that's great.
Mhm.
I love it.
And my background
So,
is I have
go ahead, please.
I'm from Pakistan. I have a bachelor's degree in education, and that's also helped me out. But I learned early on that if you get I don't mind going to the college, just like Monica. I love. I took many courses. I'm a CD accreditation. I have a National Association accreditation. The best I can do to provide, the credential for my family so they can pick me as their family child care provider. And I was lucky and got appreciated by the community, and they put me on a pedestal, and I'm really proud of it because they recognize my services only because I made this relationship with my families, the daycare families that really they are the forefront that who put me in that. So Aisha's doing this, Aisha's doing that, and I don't want to brag about myself, but the only thing I did, I gained trust from these families. That's it.
No, that's great. That's great.
Mhm. Mhm.
Mike, may I add something?
Please.
When I talk to providers, I remind providers that the only reason we have a job is because parents have to work. There might be a few parents who are not working that would look for childcare for whatever reason, and we'll leave that there. But for the most part, why does a parent come to me? Because they need to go to work. And to me, that is almost, from a marketing standpoint, that's a captive audience right there. So I tell every provider, I don't want to be you. I don't want to be Aisha. I want to be me. What do I have? What can I bring? When I meet a parent, I give the parent the best of what I have. Now, they can probably go someplace else and get, whatever, but the value of what the takeaway is going to be the perceived value and the relationship that I form with that family. And if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't be having this discussion.
No, definitely. Definitely. So let me pivot a little bit. Aisha, I'll put you in the waiting room, but I know you're also multitasking and taking care of kids at the same time. So I'll put you in the waiting room. You're welcome to keep listening. And there's a little private chat here if you want us to bring you back on at any point. I wanted to make sure we gave you a little bit of love as well. And if you could type in the private chat where people can go to learn more about you. I know that yourself and Monica also do some coaching and things like that for family providers. So if you could send it in the private chat, I'll make sure to give you a shout out and give you some love. So let me put you back in the waiting room. But it was a pleasure to bring you on here for a few minutes as well. So let me pivot a little bit because one of the promises that I always make for these calls is that I want to learn a little bit more about your story, how things are going, but I also want to kind of give you some gratis, unsolicited coaching, consulting to pay it forward to you and everyone listening. So I wanted to share some ideas with you and kind of see how they land, and kind of how they resonate. So, and when I take a step back, there's, I guess, a couple of different ways. Just getting myself adjusted here. I feel like I can never get comfortable in my in this. I just ordered like 2 more chairs, and I don't know. I can never get comfortable. So, and as if you haven't noticed, I'm casual, so I'm drinking water, coffee, all that stuff. So, if you need water, cut tea, anything that you'd like, obviously this is a casual show. When I look at where does the journey start, and is there going to be a make or break that's going to have a family decide if they're going to enroll with you or with someone down the street? Or are they going to enroll in a family center, or are they going to go to, I don't want to use the word traditional childcare, but are they going to go to a physical center, for example? And to me, it starts with you, as you said, and you already said it perfectly, of you don't want to be anyone else. You don't want to be Aisha. You want to be you, and you want your personality and your mantra, your values to shine through. So one of the big things that I have seen when I've looked at, and I'm seeing a bunch of questions here as well, so I'll make sure that that we address these. So Sandra and Susan, Tara, thank you for these. I'll make sure that we aim to address these on this call as well. So you're getting lots of shout outs. So lots of people saying they love you and they love Aisha. So I'm just the eye candy for today, I guess. So I always joke with the team. When I look at how can they put themselves in a different bucket, to me, it's you. It's the owner. And far too often, an owner of a home center, a family center, they feel like they have to be in a little bit of a box. And I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. And I'll say all this with love. So I know that you have a website, of which I've been to. And when I look at your website, and this is not just for you, this is for a lot of providers. It's a templated website that your vibe of what you've been conveying here, it's night and day of what your website is showing and what you are, who you are, what you offer. So, and again, I'm saying all this with love. I mean, your site is filled with stock images, and I doubt these aren't the kids that are coming to your center. I mean, there's a video on there of you, but it's from a while ago, like 6 or 7 years ago. And again, I'm not saying to beat you up, because this is almost every family center's website. They get a templated website from like GoDaddy or Wix or something, and they throw it up. And I'm not saying that you need this world-class website. It's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is I would love to challenge both you, Monica, and everyone listening that the website, whether this is good or bad, it's the first line of where a parent is going. All of their research is starting online. And if it's not starting online, the number one source of leads, every time I ask a child care center, I'll actually ask you this question and make sure that I'm still batting 100. When I ask a child care provider, what is your number one source of leads? What would they say?
For me, it's my parent.
Exactly. So it's word of mouth. Word of mouth is every single center. They say the exact same thing. And that's not a bad thing at all, because it shows that you have a great program that they're willing to refer you. But there's 2 challenges with parent referrals. The first one is you have absolutely no control over when and how often they refer. And what I'm seeing now is that, and what I'm advising, is that you've got to find some ways to take the bull by the horns. And what I mean by that is it's really, I mean, things have shifted so drastically over the last couple of months, and not even just with COVID. But the trends that I'm also seeing, and we work with hundreds of centers every single day of all different shapes and sizes. So I think the smallest center we work with has capacity for 20. The largest is capacity in the thousands. They have like 15, 20 locations. And the challenges that they face are all very, very similar. It's needing more enrollments, which I promise where I'm going to give you some other strategies in just a second. But what we're finding, even with the needing more enrollments, is that, okay, they need some more leads. They need some more parents to talk to. They need some more parents to do tours for. What I have seen over the last 90 days is that it is so competitive right now. So like everyone is out for, I hate to say out for blood because that's not what it is, but like it's almost like survival of the fittest right now. Mm-hmm. And because everyone is clamoring to make sure that they don't go out of business. And sad to say that I'm seeing a lot of centers closing up shop. Now, I'm also seeing this as a massive opportunity for people that have, if their mindset or their vision is for acquisition and things like that, that's a whole nother episode. And that's a huge opportunity as well. But I'm finding, I'll give you a perfect example, and I won't name the center, but they had used to have a wait list, literally a wait list around the block. And now, not only is there no wait list, like they're almost having to beg parents to come and take a tour. And from a mindset standpoint, it has been a huge shift to the owner because we have the most high-class Montessori center. We have always had a wait list. We feel that parents should be begging to get into it. So they wanted to have that eliteness. But even those types of centers, even with family centers and home centers, we're finding that you have to kind of take things up a couple of notches. So I digress a little bit, and my ADD took me down a path of ranting a little bit. But when I go back to your website, of my suggestion for you and for everyone listening, step one is that I need your website to have a personality. And I want your website, my suggestion would be to see your website completely redone. Even if you're using a free template on something like Wix or we use WordPress, and we design hundreds of sites all the time. But I want it to have your personality. I want it to have authentic pictures of families and kids that actually have attended. I want to see smiling testimonials and endorsements right on the homepage. I want to see, at the very least, a picture of you and your vision and what you stand for. I want to see your core values front and center. So that would be suggestion number one to you and to everyone listening, is that the way that you're going to stand out initially, even if they're parent referrals, they're going to Google your name and they're going to Google your website, and they're going to start to read about everything. And if there's something that kind of takes their spidey sense up, or if there's something that just doesn't seem, I guess, authentic, they're possibly going to go somewhere else. Mm-hmm. So that's recommendation number one, is that if you don't, even if you've got capacity for 8, for 6, for 10, I mean, you need some kind of web presence, even if it's a 1 or 2 pager that just, it's your personality. It's your story. And in particular, your story and Aisha's story and most of the other family providers that I've ever spoken with, they all have a story. No one just says, well, I wanted to open up a center in my house because I wanted to make some extra money. I have never heard that story ever. Now, that might be part of it, but that has never been what they have led with, ever. It's similar to yours. Like, I did this for my kids. I did this to pay back the community. I did this because I love just working with children and I want to give them a loving and there's always more to that story. And unfortunately, most centers' stories are not resonating as we speak. So that's suggestion number one. And that is my first soapbox for you. And for our listeners, is that I would encourage you to just, and with the video, literally, I mean, it can be as simple as, taking out an iPhone or an Android and having, hey, this is Monica, and I am with Jackson Childcare. And boy, do I have a story for you today. I've been doing this for 30 years. I've hoped that I've now become a staple in the community, and I want to provide a safe, loving environment for your kids. I know what you're going through right now, and I believe Aisha said this, and I think you've said it as well. But like I know that this is probably the most difficult time to be a parent that has to work in these crazy times. So I wanted to just shoot this short video to put your mind at ease. I would love the opportunity to meet you and your precious son or daughter. So just something like that. I was trying to do it in my radio voice or how I would shoot it, but to kind of give you want your personality to come through, and your personality among all the people I've interviewed you're so well-spoken, so bubbly, so on point. That one thing alone, that little change will definitely help. So that's idea number one. Any questions on that one before I go to idea number two for you?
No, thank you. Please go ahead.
Perfect. All right. So idea number two is the number one way that you are going to be able to drive more enrollments now is through Facebook ads. And I want to talk through that, and I want to tell you what we're seeing, what kind of budgets, why I'm suggesting it. But before I give you kind of the step-by-step, I want to tell you why I am suggesting this. Actually, no, strike that. I want to tell you the mindset that you need to have before you start this. So I wouldn't say that I've been huge with mindset. I have done a lot of personal and professional development. My first digital marketing agency, almost all of my clients were speakers and authors. So think of people like Tony Robbins, for example. So these people were all clients of mine. I had the top meditation expert in the world, life coaches. So I got all of their training gratis. So I've started to infuse that stuff into my brain, and I use it. But what I didn't start realizing until all this craziness happened is that the mindset of a lot of people that are listening currently is one of a few things, but usually it's a little bit negative. And I encourage you to, very similar to, as you said earlier, Monica, to have that bigger picture, to have that vision. The fact that you aren't stressed out when you've only got 3 enrollments, not that there's anything wrong with 3, but capacity for 12, but you're like, I'm showing up every day. I'm here. Like, I love it. I would be hard pressed to tell you that maybe 1 in 10 can share a similar attitude as yours. So before you do any new marketing, before you fix your website or try the Facebook stuff we're going to talk about, you've got to make sure that your mindset is on point, that you have that bigger vision, that you know where you want to go, but also, and this is key, yes, there's a lot of families that are nervous to send their kids. That's a fact. However, if you look at the facts and the statistics, not of COVID infections and all that, we sure as heck won't go down that path. But if you look at the percentages of centers that are closing, and there are centers closing every single day, unfortunately. So let's say that over the next 6 months, 50% of centers close. There's not all of a sudden 50% less kids. So to me, this is going to be like the gold rush. And the way that you can capitalize on it is to adjust your mindset that prosperity is going to be coming towards you, have that bigger vision, continue to show up day in and day out, to know that not every family wants to stay at home. Not every family is going to be nervous to send their kids. So they're all going to be a little bit nervous, especially if they see, I can see in your background, the Clorox wipes. So that probably is going to be a good thing if they see those. Not every family is overly nervous. So there definitely are those families. But what I'm encouraging you to do with Facebook, and this is for not only every family center, but every center that we work with, when they say, Michael, what is the fastest way that you can drive me high quality leads that are going to turn into enrollments? It is Facebook ads. And let me tell you why. So with Facebook ads, you are able to laser target the exact families that you want. You're able to say, Facebook, I want you to show my ad to families that live within 5 miles of this location. And that's the generic targeting. But then you can start to say, well, I want you to show the ads to parents that are of these ages, that have this income, that are faith-based. Like, you can start to add all of these other interests. So you can then leverage Facebook to say, find me people that I'm going to love working with, and their kids are going to love my center. Now, the big rookie mistake that a lot of centers make is they think Facebook, when I say Facebook ads, they think that is you put a post on Facebook and you boost it. That is not Facebook ads. That is boosting a post. Facebook ads is really where you're thinking strategically through things. You're thinking about the ad copy, which we can talk about. You're, in a perfect world, you're leveraging that video that we just kind of scripted out 5 minutes ago that could go on your website. Well, that video can also be perfect for Facebook. So what ends up happening is you're running that ad on Facebook, and you can start with a really low budget. And to me, a really low budget, $5 a day, $10 a day, for example. And that ad will start to show up into all the parents' news feeds. They're going to see this video of you talking. They're going to see the video, the copy that says we're now enrolling. They're going to see you answering all of their objections. And if you start to think about what are those objections you're getting, most of the objections right now, they're all COVID driven. Do you track the other families to make sure that they're not going on vacation to Florida and coming back, for example? How often are you sanitizing? Do you sanitize the toys? Which I wrote a blog post like 2 weeks ago. So I learned everything about how to sanitize, like 9 different ways to sanitize toys at scale. Like, you can put them in the dishwasher. You can use this fogger. It was actually really interesting stuff. But when I look at those objections, when you answer those and when you combine that with an authentic video, your center will be in front of more people every day. Because and I'm using the word center generically, because we have home centers listening, we have physical brick and mortar retail locations that have 1 location or 10 locations listening. So I'm using center generically, but you're all providers, whether it's in your house, whether it's there's still in a physical location. So if you answer those objections and you speak from the heart, you will start to get more leads in the next few days. I have seen it happen every single time and time again. So my suggestion, so your step 1 is to look at how can you be a little bit more authentic on your website. I would love to see you do a video and would challenge you to do one next week. And literally just, like we're doing right here, like your background is fine. Your lighting looks great. Your audio is perfect. Like, you could, record one yourself that literally done. And you're going to put this on Facebook, and you're going to leverage Facebook ads, and you're going to start to select those different interests of these are the types of families that you want. Because when I looked at your website versus your Facebook page is 110% authentic. You've got pictures of lots of things. You've got old pictures from 4th of July, for example. There's just a lot of really great pictures. You've got authentic pictures that I can tell are ones that were actually in your center because you're in these, for example. And as long as you have permission to be using those pictures, those should be going on your website right out of the gate, combined with your photo.
Mike, can I just share something with you?
Yes.
Kathy and myself go almost 25 years back, and we keep in contact regularly, like sometimes weekly we walk. And I think it was 2 years ago, Kathy talked about the website, just like your points. And she said, I sure wish you would stop using those stock photos and use your kids. And I had to say to Kathy, majority of those are my kids. So I need to do, like you're saying, in the setting and what have you, I need to do a better job, because the kids, that's what they are. They're my kids.
Well, that's interesting because you would have. I mean, the good news, I guess, is if these are your kids, then you had a really high end professional photo shoot, because they look like really high end stock. So there, but it's not a bad thing. But unless you would have told me what you just shared, I would have never have guessed these were your kids.
And part of my enrollment process, it does include authorization and release authorization for photos. Most of the parents find me through referrals and the Facebook posts or the Google posts. And if a parent comes in and express an objection, I have to make the decision with the parent whether or not this makes sense for us. And so far, it has not been a stumbling block. It's been a challenge for us to work through it, and I've grown from it. Everything that happens for a purpose, and it always happened for an improvement. So that's how we look at it.
It's a great positive attitude to have. That was my quote when I remember my senior yearbook. I just was thinking about this last week for my high school yearbook. My quote, everyone got to put a quote, and mine was, "Everything happens for a reason. The hard part is finding out what that reason may be."
Exactly.
And that exact same mindset that I've had the last 6 months. So I want to close out on one thing on Facebook, and then we'll answer one question, and then I'll turn you loose because we're already coming up on the top of the hour already. With the Facebook stuff, what I'd love to see you do is, if you were to go all in on Facebook, I would encourage you to pause your Google, if you're doing Google AdWords or Bing or YouTube or Instagram. I want to see you go all in with Facebook, and I want to see a dedicated budget. And this is where it's a challenge with family centers, because the budgets that I normally suggest, they've never done this, and B, they're coming from a scarcity, in my opinion. And again, everything I say is with love, a scarcity mindset. So if I say I want to see you investing $10 or $20 a day, so $300, $600 a month, they might say, well, how am I going to do that? And I'll give you the answer. You put it on a credit card, which gives you 30 days to pay. And you make sure that you just do such a great job with your story, with the targeting. The whole point is all of your marketing should be paying for itself. Every marketing, and this is so that you mentioned kind of, you've got your, and pardon my sniffing, I've had allergies the last week or so. So I've been muting myself so you don't hear my obnoxious sniffing this morning. But that whole piece of, if you want to go from 3 to 12, now is the time to kind of take your marketing up a notch. I personally am doubling down on everything that I'm doing. So my business as well I've taken a substantial hit because we work pretty much exclusively with childcare centers. And when they've taken a hit, our business takes a substantial hit. But in order to continue to, I like to say, eat my own dog food, I'm doubling down. So I'm publishing more books. I'm doing more content like this. I'm investing more money than I've ever invested before on ads. Because in my opinion, this is the best time to put yourself out there so that your family center, your physical center can stand the test of time. So with Facebook, dial in your targeting, have some good authentic videos. If you were to go on video, or Aisha were to do some videos, you will resonate. You will get parents sending you messages saying, how do I enroll? And as a way to kind of pay it forward for you coming on today, I will make sure that when I put you back in the waiting room, when we end the broadcast in a second, I'll make sure that we find a way that I can help you gratis there. And because you've got such an amazing thing going, and I would love to help you get back to 12 and to be able to continue to spread the love and spread the joy to the community and to other centers. But those are my 2 tips for family centers. And it's not that you're not going to have any objections. There are going to be families that say, I don't want to come right now. That's going to happen. But the families that are interested, they're going to raise their hand and they're going to say, hey, Monica, I saw this video that you had. I really resonated with your mission. Tell me more. I can tell you that in looking at data, because I'm a data person and numbers person, I am seeing the upward trend of families that are starting to come back to childcare centers faster than it has been in 3 months. The last 2.5, 3 weeks, the search volume and the call volume and the lead volume has started to increase exponentially. Now, that's not every city across the U.S. Like there's obviously, like Miami, for example, is having a COVID, rebirth or whatever the phrase is. So there are sometimes places that it's going up and then coming back down and wild. But all in all, the data is showing me some positive things. So my ending comment, and I'd be happy to allow you to have an ending comment, and I want to learn more about how they can learn more about you, is that this is the best time to take things up a notch. I know that maybe money's tight, maybe you're nervous. You've got to have that guiding vision to know that things are going to continue to get better. If you believe in yourself, you believe in what you're doing, that's going to resonate and come through on video. It's going to come through on tours. It's going to come through over the phone. But they can tell if you're nervous or if you've got some trepidation in your voice. So I keep saying my final comment, but it's double down on yourself. Make sure that your website fits your brand, fits your mission, fits your personality, tells your story. And then you couple that with some Facebook ads, and it does not become that challenging to fill a home center. So those are my 2 tips, but I would love to, if you have any final thoughts for people listening or a favorite quote of yours, I'd be more than happy to have you throw that on the table. And then I know that you do some coaching and things like that to help others. So I'd love to kind of give you a plug and see where people can go to learn a little bit more about you.
It's kind of putting me on the spot, but
yeah, I always like to put you on the spot.
It really is. If I had to share a comment or 2 to my associates, it would be, I've lived through a lot. I'm 66. So therefore, I have seen this and more. And there's always an end. The light is at the end of the tunnel. Don't focus on yesterday. Be in your presence right now. Have a vision as to where you want to go. And don't look at distractions, because all they do is they take you off your goal. And be yourself. Don't be anybody else. When you start focusing on other things, you start losing and you start doubting yourself. I started off this journey in fear because I'm in a high-risk category, 4 high-risk category. And then I turned that fear into, you know what? This is time. I can use this time for professional development. Then I started talking to peers that were working and realized that they were working so much, they didn't have the time to know what was going on in the industry. And so I started to be the feed for the industry, telling them, have you applied for this as yet? The deadline is this, and literally going and following. So I made myself useful there. And that fear, that process turned the fear, I think of it as a driving in a vehicle. Fear took the back seat, and then my faith just showed up. And once my faith showed up, the peace that is inside of me just continues to be there. That's all I would say.
Well, that was great. Where can people go to learn a little bit more about you if they want to get in touch with you or send some gratitude your way? Where can people go to learn more about you?
I'm on Facebook. My website is Monica mjchildcare.com. If you Google my name, I'm fortunate to be several pages on there. You can access me there. Just Monica Jackson Childcare Provider, and you should get. I have a web presence. With Mike's help, hopefully it will be
even better.
An improved presence, but
Definitely.
I'm easy to find. I really am.
Love it. Well, thank you ever so much, Monica, for joining us. Thank you for all of our listeners. Thank you for all your questions, your comments. Continue to like this, share this. I will be back at everyone next week, Thursday as well. And as always, if we can help you in any way, please feel free to reach out. Have a wonderful rest of your Thursday, everyone. Great rest of your weekend, and we will see you soon.
Same to you. Thank you.